Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of Refined Theorycrafting. As per usual, all 5 of these units have been selected by people in my Twitch whenever I do work on those videos. If you want to have a characters featured or a character that I would be working on, just basically tell me whenever I go live working on these. I typically work on these between the 26th to the 28th of each month. The video is obviously uploaded at a later date depending on how I feel like it. But here it is. As for people who are looking forward to the legendary banner review, don't expect it today, but it could happen. If not, it's going to be next Sunday. And I should also say before we start, I'm going to be summoning for New Year Guntra, trying to plus 10 her this weekend with a bit over 2,400 orbs, so yeah. With that out of the way, let's move on to the characters. Starting with Effie. So the thing is, Effie is a bit strange. She already has this kind of weapon already, Effie's Lance. Effie's Lance is a weapon in how's it called? In Fates. Wow. In Fates, where the weapon basically makes you slower but hits like a truck. The idea is that you're forced to use Wary Fighter to actually be able to use this weapon. Since speed doesn't fucking matter whatsoever in this game, since Bolt Fighter exists, since Vengeful Fighter exists, I decided to take the idea and then push it further. So the goal is to basically make so if you block follow-ups, if you don't get follow-upped on, that's a strange way to put it, you get a Brave effect. Now, we had a few people on stream that for some reason do not know the difference between Brave effect and follow-up. A follow-up is blocked by skills such as Wary Fighter. You cannot pull follow-ups with Wary Fighter. But you can hit twice with Wary Fighter with a Brave Lance, for instance. This is a multi-phase Brave Lance. The idea is just, it's a lot harder to use on player phase. If someone has quick riposte, you don't get to hit twice, you only get to hit once. So, you get the idea. Quick riposte is a hard counter to it. Vengeful Fighter is a hard counter to it. Bolt Fighter on enemy face is a hard counter to it. This is the idea behind it. Because the speed will be so low that if it becomes a speed check, you will get doubled. It doesn't matter by what, you will get doubled. So it's a bit gimmicky, but it's not too gimmicky, if you get the idea. So this is to kind of push the idea to use Wary Fighter, because the whole idea of Effie's Lance is to use Wary Fighter in combo with it in Fates. So yes, you're kind of forced to use Wary Fighter. It also lucks your builds a bit, but also it's less boring than Bolt Fighter and say Vengeful Fighter all the time. Let's just put it this way. So yeah, it's a 16 my Brave Lance with a fuck ton of attack. As for the refined, I'm referring to the personal skill Effie has called Puissance, which is just power in French. What Puissance does is, if you have 5 more attack than the enemy, you get 3 more attack. So I did the same thing, but 8 attack here. Because that way, even if you don't get the follow-up, because someone has, for instance, quick riposte, you still can hit like a truck to an extent where you can possibly even kill. This is a all-out power, but for instance, if you have a unit such as Lucas, who has 22 speed, whereas Effie is sitting down at 17 because of Effie's Lance, with quick riposte, Lucas will just take the first hit and kill you off. That's the kind of logic behind it. It is just a ton of attack, and the low def res that Effie has at base is the offset. So, yeah. Moving on. This time to Canas. Canas is a bit strange. I decided to just give him Luna, because I'm gonna be honest with you, FE7 does not have unique Dark Tome whatsoever that are worth a shit outside of Luna and to some extent Eclipse. but Eclipse is kind of It's unique, but it's So I just decided to opt with Luna. So, to put it simply, if you have any idea how Alm works, this is a way to make Alm, to pull off Alm without it being broken. Because the thing with Canas is that his speed stat is not great. It's not amazing, it's not reliable. So the fact that you get an extra damage based on your enemy's death or res, so in this case res, because it's a mage tome, is not nowhere near as strong as Alm, because you only get to have the effect once, not twice. And you also don't have Lunar Flash. Honestly, if Alm had like 31 speed and 37 attack, I would have been completely fine with him. But oh well. Of course, you've got to make him a speedster on top of it. The base effect is obviously cooldown -1 with an all effect. Cooldown -1 because Luna has 20% crit rate. This is kind of to refer to this. The all tome is just because, let's be honest, cooldown -1 itself is not enough. His stat line is really good with all tome, to be honest. It's the same reason why all tome is the best tome on Ray. Ray has a very similar stat line to him. If you have something like close counter, you can actually use the defense to your advantage from the Altome. You can buff it up with Death Tactic, Drive Death, Marth, so characters like this. And just push it forward to a point where you can have quite a bit of defense and res, while also having the speed to run stuff like no follow-up because of Altome, because of drive speed. So you're actually able to, well, potentially block doubles or double yourself. But it requires positioning instead of, you know, just being like, I hit like a truck, I have high attack and speed and decent amount of bulk all around because fuck having counters like Alm did. So, yeah, he's also the only user of Dark Tomes that you can actually recruit in FE7. FE6 also had Nime, I believe, and Ray, but, you know, those are FE6, not FE7. So, moving on. Next up is Legault. He's meant to be a lot more solo. At first I really wanted the effect that he has on his weapon to just be a solo skill, but then I decided against it because I realized the whole way he fights is just fighting dirty, right? The way how he basically just ambush people, kill them off that way, this is the kind of idea. So I made the base effect to be just using the buff from your enemy against them, but also the refine itself to use buff on yourself against them. So essentially it's like a double-edged blade tome, but without any bad part. It makes up for the fact that his attack is rather low. His bulk is still very atrocious, so it's still, you know, a point of problems for him. But it might have been a bit too strong. I just decided to go like, just basically just turning the table, the knife essentially, based on how you approach the situation. So yeah. If you think that's too broken, just think of the refine as attack res solo. That's also just as fine. So, moving on to Narcian now. So, before we start with Narcian, I just want to point out the fact that he uses swords and lance, right? That's the main way he fights in FE6. That's the only way he fights in FE6. Why the fuck is he an axe unit? That's literally the only thing he can't use. It's so stupid. So I decided to go a bit in the same way as Eld's weapon worked. As in the rune sword in FE6 is a weapon that only hits res, which by the way, only in range combat. I do know that much. So I decided to combine Delphi's shield, which he comes with Rune Sword, which hits res at distance. I decided to just luck it to hitting res instead of either res or def, whichever is lower. Because most people you'd be fighting have, well, you know, low res. Unless they are magic or staff users. Which is why these characters he's going to be hitting defense on. It's fairly similar to the same way as Hell's Weapon working in FEH, of course. So, yeah, it works on some, it doesn't on other. As for the refine, I decided to just go with the, well, the second effect the Rune Sword has, which is just draining HP. Very similar to my Earth Sword Refine, but a more aggressive version of it. Which, you know, makes sense. This also makes so that his low attack, the fact that he hits typically the lowest point between def or res, when fighting mages, staves, and, you know, most melee units, is to make up for the fact that his attack is honestly piss poor at best. There is no restriction to it because, let's be honest, Narcian is the type of character that doesn't give a shit about anyone. I guess I could have based it somewhat on Ziphiel, but then it's only one type of unit and it's just not great. So I decided to just make it like this, just a flat effect. The 50% HP heal is to actually emphasize the fact that he has a lot of bulk. 32 defense and 26 res is honestly not bad at all. So the fact that he's able to take hits and also heal back actually gives him an interesting niche as a green axe flyer. Something that he desperately needs. Rune Axe is not exactly a thing in this game, but neither is an Axe Narcian in FE6, so I had to improvise. So I just went with the Rune Axe, which is just basically Rune Sword, but Axe. And now, moving to our last contender, Oscar. So Oscar is a bit strange. In FE9, and I don't blame you for not remembering this, but in FE9, Oscar is actually able to do a triangle attack with Rolf and what's his name? Boyd. So it requires Oscar to become an archer, and it also requires Boyd to become an archer on promotions, and then they can do the triangle attack. So that's kind of the idea. That's why there's a bow on the icon, which also special thanks to IDCSAO for making DMO being able to take the icon and just make it a triangle without the stupid wing on it. I would not have been able to do a decent-ish icon otherwise. So, yeah. The idea is just very simple, very similar to Kane. However, I decided to just make it with one axe or bow unit, because to make it so that it needs to be around 2 bow units would be awkward to say the least. But also, if it was around an axe and a bow unit for a weapon that is meant to be used aggressively, a lance, this effect would never go off. Let's just put it that way. So the idea is for you to go with Wings of Mercy on this character, so you can actually teleport around the map to help your brothers, in quotation, you get the idea, to help them get the kill or save them and so forth. So you get 4 across the board that way, and you get a Brave effect if you're around one of such units. I could have made it adjacent, but I feel like doing it that way means that even if you're not within Wings of Mercy range with the other 2 units, you still, well, 1 or 2 or 3 units, whichever, you still have some kind of use that way. especially since this is meant to be only player phase. Like the fin refine I did was meant to be multi-phase, so you get the idea. I wanted it to be a bit stronger than Finn's weapon, essentially. So, yeah, I suppose that's it. Hopefully this was satisfactory to you all, to see my ideas for those units. And yeah, I guess I'll be seeing you all next month for the next episode. Anyway, I'll see you all later. Cheers all. Have a good night.